With Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild finally being released, it seems only right to take a look at the original NES game that Nintendo is trying to recapture the magic of. I had it on GBA as a kid and I loved it then. I replayed it on NES multiple times of course, and it's easily one of my favorite games for the console. Big surprise there. Anyway, without any further ado, let's dive into the original Legend of Zelda. In 2017, what the hell is left to be said about this wondrous masterpiece of a classic NES title that not only paved the way for the Western RPG, you know, your Skyrims and such, that aren't really RPGs, but whatever, and the open world sandbox games, your GTAs and whatnot. It is surely one of the most influential and important titles of not only its era, but of all time. With such a simple premise as Mario's Save the Princess, this game was so incredibly different than that of Super Mario Bros. In every conceivable way. The infinite amount of possibilities as to how to finish the game is the sort of freedom that gives this game and the Mega Man titles such a life today, a freedom that was vastly ahead of its time. See, while most games were about getting from point A to B and killing all the guys, Zelda was incredibly more free and complex. You could go right to Ganon's tower if you wanted, and while you would eventually need to beat every dungeon, you could very well, with enough skill, make it to Ganon without doing hardly anything. The dungeons could also be done in any order you choose, but the difficulty kept the numbering of each level consistent to the path the game designers recommended. This stemmed from creator Shigeru Miyamoto's childlike wonder of adventures he would have in his backyard, going through forests, stumbling across caves, finding adventure everywhere. It's a part I really relate to as well, as I used to have adventures like this in my forest around my house. I think this is part of the magic of the game, exploration of the vast, amazing landscapes and the atmospheres of Hyrule, discovering secrets beneath bushes, blowing open secret entrances in the mountains, stumbling upon stores hidden under armored knights, or even just getting to any dungeon and exploring its depths for the plunder of treasures and enemies within. The sheer number of secrets I probably haven't found yet is mind-boggling, and it'll always make another playthrough super interesting, amongst other things. Exploration is implied to the player through the guidance of the Triforce pieces, which are essential to finishing the game, but the beauty is the fact that you can accomplish this task whenever you feel like. The plethora of other things to do for the time was astounding, and is a piece of what still makes this game so enjoyable. It's a game I'm always so invested in, like Persona 4. I can never put it down until I beat it. Your time can also be filled searching for secrets that range from additional heart pieces to a new sword upgrade, a chancy shot at opening a hole that could lead to a money giver or a money taker, a gambling game where you bet rupees, perhaps even an old lady who sells you potions. The possibilities are incredible. The vast amount of fun a player can have for themselves is astounding. The game doesn't force itself on the curious player, nor does it kill itself for the player who just wants to make it through quickly. The open world aspects of this game are not only so obviously brilliant and influential to modern games, but are so well balanced that it's an enjoyable experience for everyone. That's the timeless Nintendo charm we all adore at work. The design at play here is astounding, and the pacing of not only defeating dungeons to level up in the sense that you get a heart container and a Triforce piece, which even makes the reward for finishing the intended plot of the game vastly more satisfying. This is a short game if you want it to be. Even when I'm grinding for enemies for rupees for the blue ring, it doesn't feel tedious because the enemies are normally right within the area you reach by traveling, so killing them for rupees is no problem at all. Not to mention every 10th enemy killed nets you a bomb drop, and a few more nets you a fairy drop, so the game even rewards you more for the hidden mechanics of being so good at it. The pacing and design are masterfully crafted, in a time that it barely mastered side-scrolling platformers. In terms of gameplay, the style is that of a top-down perspective, which for an adventure game of the time is a very interesting choice, as it adds a different dimension to how you perceive the world versus the standard side-scroller. Slashing in all directions with your sword, perceiving the ranges of your bomb blasts and how many enemies you can hit all at once, and the angular ranges of the boomerang at which you can stun enemies. The variety of enemies is also staggering. Not to even forget superficial icing like the beautiful graphics or the lulling soundtrack of high adventure and atmosphere, and the visual flair to the world, enemies, dungeons, and everything else. The fact that so many things exist in such a limited cart with the technology of the 80s is just mind-boggling. It's a game that's so well polished to the point where you can just be so immersed without the hassle of learning the intuitive controls or tirelessly struggling to hit an enemy. The combat is spot on, with a variety of obtainable tools making it even more glorious. Not only is your sword useful, but you have bombs that can hurt multiple enemies at once, a boomerang to stun them, arrows to hit them from afar, a candle or wand to burn them, and a shield to defend yourself from their projectiles, which can be upgraded at shops or stolen by like-likes. There's so much to the nuances and the possibilities of choices to play the game to your way of comfortability, much like the Mega Man series, and it becomes accessible yet challenging to master. On that note, I feel it's fair to say that this isn't an easy game, but it isn't too hard either. I think the challenge is very well balanced to reflect the wide appeal of Nintendo was going for. With the exception of Ganon's Tower and a few cryptic parts in the game, which nowadays are easily solved by the internet, and back then would have driven you insane, I'm sure, I'd say that the difficulty and pacing don't ever really come to a halt. And of course this game was one of the first to feature the battery backup saving, thus eliminating those pesky continues and live systems that made a lot of games of its time very immensely frustrating and somewhat unplayable in modern standards. I could go on and on about everything from the puzzle solving to the specific enemies and the dungeon layouts, but it's truly pointless as there are infinite discussions that can be had about how this game truly changed everything. Nintendo would go on to make Zelda a juggernaut of a franchise, but there's something magical about this original that can't be matched. Perhaps it's the exploration aspects, or the freedom it allowed, or its high fantasy, the living world feel, or maybe even just that special simplicity of the complexities of the NES, and its run that so perfectly makes for such a rich, interesting history for gaming. One thing that is for sure is that this is a masterpiece of an adventure title, and will always stand forever as not only one of the greatest NES games, but quite simply one of the greatest games ever made. Those who have played it know its magic, and to those who haven't, or given up on it, the internet now has a vast library of knowledge to help you through, so there's no excuse not to. Obviously, this is a 10 out of 10 game in terms of history and objectivity, and I agree as it's nearly flawless for me. I've still never beaten the second quest, but the replayability is obviously there for New Game or New Game Plus if I'm feeling adventurous. Thanks for watching. If you want to see more of me, here's my other series of reviews. If you want to see more NES 101 videos like this one, here's those. As always, don't forget to keep it classic and stick around for more reviews and underrated games. See ya!
Zelda 1 accomplished is just, well, legendary.